development and implementation of children and teens programs across all Singapore public libraries. Let's hear what she has to say to us.
We've been a principal librarian for the Children and Teens Programs and Services at the National Library Board of Singapore, and I'm excited to share about our new Children Biodiversity Library by S.E.A. This is a partnership between the National Library Board of Singapore and Resorts World Sentosa, which is Asia's premium lifestyle destination resort, located on Singapore's resort island of Sentosa. It is the first marine biodiversity-themed learning space for children in a public library in Singapore, with the aim of inspiring love and action for marine biodiversity in children. It opened its door to the public on 12 January this year, so parents and children can now explore the ocean's wonders through marine biodiversity-themed zones and programs in this space. Located in the newly reopened Central Public Library, this space also houses a refreshed children's collection comprising books and reading material across a wide range of topics to engage children aged 0 to 12 years in reading and learning. Stepping into the immersive space, children will immediately embark on an exciting journey of discovery and embrace the wonders of marine biodiversity through a diverse range of engaging and interactive features in the various interactive zones. At the heart of this public learning space is a floor-to-ceiling column with chroma-like features, as well as sound and light projections. There are also infographics to help parents and children learn about the important role that coral reefs play in marine biodiversity right here in the coral zone. Over at the sea jelly zone, visitors can immerse themselves in the habitats of sea jellies, which have many important roles within the main ecosystem through a projection of marine life at the sea aquarium. In addition, they can get up close with Sea Aquarium's collection of specimens, including shark jaws and coral skeletons. For the intertidal zone, it is designed to help foster a deeper appreciation of intertidal biodiversity. Young learners and their parents can learn about the multitude of organisms living on marine shorelines through information panels in this zone. You will also find gamification kiosks in this space. The gamification is an initiative by the National Library Board of Singapore to promote greater interest in reading, learning, and discovery. The kiosk feature the National Library Board's popular children's reading initiative, Bookmarks. Children can color in a bookmark avatar and project it into an underwater scene. The bugs shown are related to water to tie into the marine theme of the children's library. We often find children gravitating to the submarine. It is a dedicated space designed to resemble a submarine to immerse children in educational programs on marine biology and conservation. They are led by Resorts World Sentosa staff and co-facilitated by trained volunteers. There are monthly programs happening at the submarine. Here's a snapshot of the different program series on marine biology and conservation. As mentioned earlier, they are led by Resorts World Sentosa staff and co-facilitated by their trained volunteers. Children can look forward to meeting fascinating individuals like aquarists and divers who contribute to the Sea Aquarium experience in a day in the life aquarium edition program, or be captivated by a live storytelling session where children will learn about interesting marine biodiversity in the Ocean Tales program, and many more. What's more, there are other sustainability-themed programs for children at the submarine. For example, they can join a DIY tinkering program to create a movable cardboard whale to bring home, or join the Water Wally and Sally Club Little Water Sleuths program to go around the library to uncover secrets about our water story. Overall, the strong partnership drew much media attention and received extensive media coverage from the mainstream media across the four official languages of Singapore. This has highly increased public awareness and attracted many visitors to the space. With that, I will end my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks to Hui Bin, although she can't hear us at the moment, you can ask questions to Hui Bin using the chat function. And as I said, the answers will be gathered in a document and shared with you. Our third speaker comes from Turkey, from the Koç School Libraries. Sevgi Arioglu also recorded her presentation. Let's see her video titled Witnesses of the Past, Source of the Future. Rami Library is a sustainability and community well-being.
Dear Roshan, Children Libraries Conference attendees, I hope all of you have a great memories and enjoyable conference experience. I would like to thank organization committee firstly, then my colleagues Áurea, Carolyn, and Xaydé Libraries for Dear Roshan, Children.
That video doesn't work, but luckily we have a link to her presentation. We will try to start her presentation after the break, and we will move on with our program. Our fourth speaker comes from Canada. Natalie Soini is an educational librarian from Queen's University Library and will tell us about drag story time at Canadian Public School Libraries. Natalie, we can't hear to hear what you have to say to us.
Sure, the picture is very attractive. So hello everyone, bonjour. My name is Natalie Soini and I am an educational librarian from Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, Canada. Kingston is situated on the territory of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee, and I'm grateful to be able to live and learn on these lands. For those of you who cannot see me on the camera, I am a woman. I use the pronouns she, her. I have brown hair, brown eyes, I am white, and I wear glasses. So today I will talk to you briefly about drag story time in Canada. And I changed it slightly, so I'm going to talk mostly about public libraries, in particular public libraries in Ontario, which is the province where I live. Before I begin, I have a question for all of you. When you think about inclusion in Canada, have you ever thought about inclusion in Canada? What is the first thing that comes to mind? Do you think about it? Immigrants, yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of different ideas that come to mind. We're also very close to the United States. So sometimes people confuse us as the same. We are slightly different, but we also have a lot of similarities, including some issues that occur with drag story time. So the following slides, I'm going to tell you about drag story time in public libraries, how they have been contentious. So there have been a lot of problems regarding drag story time in our libraries, and also the very positive impacts that drag story time may have. And before I begin, I just wanted to highlight some of the pictures that are on the screen in front of me or behind me. The one in the middle in particular, they are Faye and Fluffy, and Faye and Fluffy are fabulous storytime readers. They have a television show in Canada where children learn about all sorts of inclusion stories and diversity and dressing up and having fun. So I thought I'd give you a little bit of background about drag. This is something new to me. I work in an academic library. I do not work in a public library. I serve education candidates, so people who become school librarians, teachers. So I wanted to know a little bit more about why this is such an issue, because I think it's a great idea. So it started in San Francisco. It started in San Francisco in 2015 by activist and author Michelle T. and the Radar Productions, with the goal of promoting reading and diversity. And really it was because she wanted her child to have more opportunities to hear more from a diverse population. So it came from a personal place for this activist and author. In Canada, drag story time takes place mostly in public libraries, but it does occur in school libraries, especially in big communities like Toronto, which is our biggest city, about population approximately 3 to 4 million people, during Pride Week, for example. Like many other countries and our neighbors to the south, Canada has encountered protests, some very drastic protests and threats at some drag storytime events. As Davey mentions in this article from 2020, The Fabulousness and the Fury, Preparing for Drag Queen Storytime, he says that anyone who has been paying attention knows that, despite their many benefits, drag queen storytimes have been brewing tempests in teapots from one side of the country to the other. As a result, library organizations such as the Partnership, and I will show you that in a minute, have had to create policies and procedures and other statements to explain, first of all, why libraries are hosting events like Drag Storytime and who are they for? So the Partnership is a collaboration of provincial library associations across Canada. So we don't have a national organization. We used to, also called CLA, but it was the Canada Library Association. It's no longer, it no longer exists, but we do have a partnership amongst all the provincial. So we have provinces in Canada, not states. It's a collaboration of provincial library associations across Canada. And they state that the core professional values as libraries and library information workers are that we believe in the provision of access to information and its role in contributing to an active and healthy democracy. We believe in protecting the confidentiality and privacy of our library users. And that is very important, especially, you know, as there have been issues with other things, not just drag. We believe in the role of libraries as agents for social responsibility in the service of the public good. And we believe in intellectual freedom, in education, and lifelong learning. I have a reference list at the end, so you don't have to write it all down if you don't, if you don't want to. So why are they contentious? What is causing the issues? And you're going to see a different acronym for LGBTQ. So in Canada, and I think in the US, they're starting to add the 2S. And you're probably wondering what the 2S stands for. So we have Indigenous populations. And within the Indigenous population, we have something called two-spirited people. So people who identify both as female and male, or more male and they're born female. They have a variety of different ways of identifying themselves. And sometimes you see it at the beginning, sometimes you see it at the end. It can be a very long acronym. So there are some, the reason it can be contentious is perhaps for religious ideologies. I'm not saying which ones, it just may happen. There's a fear and ignorance about drag queens and kings. For example, for grooming. So they're grooming the children to become drag queens and drag kings, which is not the case. And that it encourages literacy of materials that may be viewed as unacceptable. So for example, I think someone else is talking about banned books. So they use a lot of banned books. So books, for example, that says Tango Makes Three. Have you ever read that book? It's about 2 male penguins with a baby. So those books may have been banned, or parents feel that is unacceptable for their children to read. So they are trying to make them more inclusive. So that could be part of the issue. For example, in Kingston, where I live, and Eastern Ontario, there were demonstrations in 2022 when Dare de la Femme, who's a drag queen from Kingston, was doing a story time in a small town nearby. At that particular event, there was a vague threat that was called in. Afterwards, we discovered there was not actually anything, but there was something about an explosive device. So they had to clear the library. It was not very good. And then further, a few months later, somebody actually caught the library on fire. So it's dangerous to have drag story time My neighbor and very good friend also happens to be the CEO of the public library in our community, and she said that when they plan a drag story time, the procedures and policies that they have to go through to make sure that everyone is safe, including staff. Also, there are staff members who don't agree with the drag story time. So how do you make that all work? So they work with the police, they work with the firefighters, they work with the community to make sure that it is an inclusive space. She often has to be present at those sessions because adults may come on their own to come to these sessions. And so we have to make sure that, are you there to participate? Are you there to observe? Or are you there to disrupt? So we need to make sure that the children are safe. In Northwestern Ontario, just last week, there was a bomb threat in Thunder Bay when there was a story time that was about to take place. What was lovely about that, even though it was a bomb threat, the demonstration against the bomb threat was even bigger. So people are saying, no more, don't do this. When it comes to complaints, though, you might get emails, you might get phone calls from complaints about drag story time. Davey, who will be on my list of references, in his article again, The Fabulousness and the Fury, preparing for a drag queen story time, that we must appreciate the fact that those who have taken the time to register concern are in most cases doing so from a place of sincerity and a wish for the betterment of their community. We must keep an open mind and address their concerns with the same level of respect that we ourselves would wish to receive. While our hackles may be raised by those members of the public who challenge our decisions, especially when their views are fundamentally different from our own, we must always retain our professionalism and our composure, which can be challenging if you are feeling angry. According to Keenan and Mess, they are referring here to an American context here for Drag Story Hour. Drag Story Hour has not been, Drag Queen Story Hour has not been without controversy. They continue to say in their article that this backlash gestures towards the fraught nature of connecting kids to overtly queer content, particularly in politically conservative regions. Still, Drag Queen Story Hour receives overwhelmingly positive feedback and struggles to keep up with the demand for its programs. Let's talk about positives. So positive impacts of drag story time. It makes story time an inclusive experience for everyone. Dressing up is fun. The stories chosen have inclusive themes. They promote literacy through fun, play, and self-expression, and it promotes the freedom to read. So in an article from Drag Pedagogy by Harper Keenan and Little Miss Hot Mess, and that is their name, in the journal Curriculum Inquiry from 2020, they state that drag pedagogy resists didactic instruction and is not prescriptive. Instead, it artfully invites children into building communities that are more hospitable to queer knowledge and experience. Keenan and Mess also indicate that drag pedagogy functions as an English is also not my first language, irregularized broadening of children's own interests, abilities, and eccentricities on their own. Drag storytime may have some conventions, but it ultimately has no rules. Its defining quality is often to break as many rules as possible. That being said, Drag Story Hour is especially well suited to early childhood education because it is learning through play, specifically play without predetermined purpose. In the world of drag, you can wear a crown and glitter and bright yellow crinoline and makeup and neon green fishnets and a wig. Everything is dialed up, made more interesting in large part because it is extraordinary. The drag queen often selects books and songs that have themes related to diversity and inclusion. Children are encouraged to ask questions and participate fully in story hour. And if you've ever been to a drag show, not a drag story hour, heckling is actually part of the game. So it's encouraged for children to ask questions and have fun. These are the references, of course, they're all there for you. And I thought I would end with this, which was in the American Library Association's magazine just before I left. This is RuPaul. I think everybody knows RuPaul, or at least a lot of people know RuPaul, who's American. If a drag queen wants to read you a story at a library, listen to her, because knowledge is power. And if someone tries to restrict your access to power, they are trying to scare you. Thank you. Voilà, merci.
Thank you, Natalie. And our fifth presenter in the first block of our presentations is Marian Martins from the School of Library and Information Science, Kent State University, United States of America. She works there as a professor. Marian will discuss a topic similar to Natalie's. Her presentation is titled Joyful Opposition in the Age of Censorship, Defunding, and State Control, Subversive Actions to Protect Libraries in America. Marian, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Going into the phone.
Yes.
Thank you. Hello again, everyone. I'm Marianne, as you know at this point, and I'm so happy to speak to all of you today. Anita did a good job of the order of the presentations because this really follows up on what Natalie was just talking about. So I am going to be speaking about a book that I'm writing that's called, right now it's called Librarian Advocacy. That's our working title. I'm writing it with a librarian from Columbus, Ohio, called Desiree Thomas. And you have probably, how many of you have heard about book bans and book challenges in the United States? You heard about the things that are going on? Okay, so even here in Croatia, you hear about it. Very embarrassing. When we were at mid-year meeting last year in Singapore, some of our colleagues said, oh, we make exhibits about books that are banned in the USA. And Sarah and I were just, oh, so embarrassed. So someone in Norway, someone in Australia, they make exhibits in their libraries about the kinds of books we ban in America, the land of freedom, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that have been happening and a brief look at some of the types of supports that libraries provide in their communities, and then some of the things that people are doing to rise up and protect libraries. So, do I click forward? Just like that, or here? Okay, so two things happened in the United States during 2020. Global pandemic, same as everyone here, and there was the killing of George Floyd. Have any of you heard about George Floyd? He was a Black American who was killed by a white police officer. Everyone is nodding, my goodness. Okay, so again, it's true, the world watched as he was killed. And America has a long and complicated history with racism. But after George Floyd's death, it was almost like people said, this is enough. People came out and demonstrated. People who don't usually demonstrate, participate politically, all got together, came out to the streets and protested. This was really going to be enough. And we thought, wow, this is really going to be some change. There were changes in businesses. There were changes in advertising. Suddenly you saw more Black people in advertising in different places where maybe they hadn't been as visible before. The publishing industry has traditionally been very white. People look like me in the publishing business. I used to work in children's publishing in New York. I can tell you that's true. And the books that were published were very white in terms of the people in the books. But after George Floyd's death, we had something we call the George Floyd effect. All of a sudden, you saw publishing companies hiring people, more diverse people. They were publishing more diverse content. In 2022 and 2023, our major book awards, the Newbery and the Caldecott, featured winners by diverse authors. And it looked like something really good was happening. It looked like finally we've got this change. But now we have pushback. So now we have people who are resisting this. So we have book challenges and book bans at unprecedented levels. In 2022, there were 1,269 challenges logged by the American Library Association of banned books, and the highest number ever since they started compiling data about challenges in libraries. So there were always challenges. You know, somebody doesn't like something in their library and they go and they make a complaint. So maybe every year there would be 100 challenges, all of a sudden over 1,000. That was 2022. 2023, the number's even higher. The full numbers aren't out yet, but this continues. Oops. So these moral panics around books in the States are mostly about books about people of color and about any books with LGBTQIA+ content, which is what we're calling it in the States before we change it to what Natalie suggested, because of course we're going to copy Canada, so wait for that. And in Florida, we have this guy here, Ron DeSantis. He's been kind of a leader in this. And then unfortunately, Texas, where Sarah lives, and Ohio, where I live, are following very closely what happens in Florida. So we're very worried about it. Ron DeSantis passed this thing called the Parental Rights in Education Act in 2022 to give parents more oversight in schools. So they can come into the classroom and see, okay, what are my kids reading here? And should they be reading this? And is this okay? It's resulted in teachers and school librarians having to go through all the books in their classrooms, make a list, check to see if there's any challenged or banned content, get rid of those. You know what's happening? Some librarians, and not librarians so much, but classroom teachers are saying, this is too much work. I'm going to take all the books out of my classroom. That's the result. So instead of having, a selection of wide books, they're saying, I can't do this. It's too much work. They're spending their summer vacations analyzing their collections in their libraries. It's too much. And again, this is all about books that have to do with race, gender, identity, sexual orientation. In Arkansas, it's gone so far that Sarah Huckabee Sanders has passed a bill that seeks to criminalize teachers and librarians who might have the wrong books in their collections. Imagine that. You're a librarian, you could go to jail because a parent complains about what's in your classroom. How many people do you think are going to want to be teachers and librarians in that kind of climate? I wouldn't. So we have a problem because I think also in libraries, people are doing what's called self-censoring, soft censoring, which means that if they know a book is problematic, they're thinking, oh, I can't face this. I don't want a parent coming and screaming at me. I don't want people coming in here. So maybe they keep the book under the counter. Maybe they sort of put it away somewhere so that maybe those people won't find it. That's not great, right? So there's lots of stories in the news about librarians losing their jobs from New Jersey, which is what we call a blue state, which tend to be more liberal, and even, of course, red states, which are the more conservative states. A library in Jamestown, Michigan was defunded. So libraries are funded by taxpayer money, and they can vote out funding for a library, which means the library has to close. And I live in the state of Ohio, as I said. Our governor has a bill that seeks to control what's taught in schools, not just at the elementary level, not just at the secondary level, but at the university level. So now, if, for example, I want to teach something, it's called the Enact Ohio Higher Education Enhancement Act. I'm not sure what's being enhanced, but I can tell you that it's really bumping up against academic freedom, and it has a lot to do with, say, for example, I wanted to do something on the Holocaust to undergraduate students. I would have to also provide something from the other side on the benefits of the other side, for example. So this is really going quite fun. Let's see here. Okay, so in reality, what we're about in libraries is inclusion. So with these organizations, a lot of the fans come from these grassroots organizations called Moms for Liberty. Another one is No Left Turn, or Idaho's Liberty Dogs. So these are some of the groups that are seeking to ban. And yet that's not what we're doing in libraries. Libraries are about inclusion. We serve people of all ages, we serve people of all genders, people who are have disabilities, people who are marginalized, right? That's what we do as librarians. We're there for all people. And some of the services that are provided in the United States at libraries serve immigrant populations. So this slide here is a picture from Queens Public Library in New York, which is one of the most diverse communities in America. And they have services in 59 languages in Queens, New York. It's pretty impressive. Libraries serve lunch in the summer. So in the States, children receive, if you are a child living in poverty, you get free breakfast and free lunch. But when school is out, we have a very long 10 to 12-week summer vacation. Children are literally starving because they don't have food. If their schools are closed, they don't get those meals. But the libraries partner with food banks and supply those meals. So that's another kind of service that libraries provide that maybe we don't think about every day. Libraries are also working to erase the digital divide. During the pandemic, libraries opened up their doors, they expanded their Wi-Fi so that people could access the internet from parking lots outside the library. And they work very hard to equalize access to the internet. So very important service as well. So we do have lots of stories of doom and gloom that I've just been sharing. There are these acts of joyful opposition that are happening, which gives me hope and make me feel like we're still in the right field. We're still doing good things. We have to keep moving. So this woman, Martha Hickson, is a librarian from New Jersey, and she's my hero. She was at a school board meeting, and there were a group of angry parents who were screaming at her because she had books like Lawn Boy and genderqueer YA novels about LGBTQIA+ content, and they were calling her everything from a sex offender to a pedophile. This went on in her community there at the school board meeting. The board did not stop these people. They're supposed to follow protocol and policy. People from outside are not supposed to speak, and when they are, they have a limited time. Yet no one stopped them. She had people on her front lawn complaining at her home. I mean, it was a terrifying time for her. But what she did was she had a lot of friends in the community, everyone knew her, and she inspired and organized a group of community allies. And all of a sudden, a group of her teenagers from her school library showed up at school board meetings and spoke out about what these books meant to them. She partnered with authors and got letters of support, and she recruited people from the community as well. And she won. The books got to stay in the library. And she's now an advocate who helps others. So she has a whole tool that she's developed for how to handle challenges in the library. And teens, the teens are amazing. They are forming banned book clubs to read some of these books that are being banned. And one group of teens in Texas, they read because they wonder, what other aspects of the world will remain hidden if the grown-ups are banning books? What kinds of things are we not going to learn about? So in Missouri, some students filed a lawsuit to keep banned books on the shelves. And in Pennsylvania, students held daily protests to keep some books on the shelves and force the administrators to reverse their ruling. They wanted to ban over 300 books at this school in Pennsylvania. So to me, those are really empowering stories. There's also retired librarians. So some retired school librarians, they're no longer worried about getting fired. They're going to Washington, D.C. to speak to legislature and talk to these people who are making the laws about what it means when you ban books. What's the impact for young people? So that's also a really great thing that's happening. We have, of course, our main organization is the American Library Association. They have lots and lots of resources for handling these things. There's also a grassroots group called Every Library, and Every Library is starting to work as a political action committee, and they are helping to organize in communities where there are big challenges. One of the big solutions that we all have to do is we have to get better at telling our stories. We have to talk about just as loud as these book banning groups are. We have to be just as loud talking about all the positive things that libraries do in their communities. Since in the United States, libraries are funded by taxpayers, we have to be able to speak to return on investment. What are taxpayers getting for their tax dollars when they invest in libraries? We have to be able to talk very clearly about these kinds of things. It sounds like a lot, but we have to remember that there are more people out there who support libraries, who support the freedom to read, than there are those who do not. And if in the face of very loud opposition from this small group of challengers, we have to join together with joyful opposition and advocate for the future of libraries. So I'm going to end as my Croatian colleagues do. Hvala na pažnji.
Thank you, Marianne. We have reached the end of the first part of today's presentations, although we are behind our schedule, but we'll just move on. It's time for questions from the audience to our presenters. Any questions? Okay, you'll probably think of something later and write it down in chat, and we will gather your questions and answers in the document, as I said earlier. I have prepared questions for our speakers. Part of them are already answered, but anyway, Sarah Evans, just to remind us, she talked about radio broadcast as a sustainable library program. Sarah, you said that your program was more about, well, it was less about performance and more about development. This is what I remember and what I like. What was the feedback from young people who learned new things in your program?
Thank you. That's a good question. So far, the feedback we've collected is positive. A couple things they talked about specifically. One teen I remember talked a lot about not realizing how many people in his community did different topics and different jobs. It helped him think about careers and different opportunities that are available in the world. So it broadened his view. Another teen talked a lot about how in that particular library, they have the opportunity to work with children, maybe like from like there was 10, 11, 12, and then we had teenagers, and the teenagers enjoyed the leadership opportunity to be able to work with the younger kids. The teenager would write the scripts, and then the kids would perform those, and they would edit interviews together. So that was one of the things they really liked.
Okay, thank you. More questions for Sarah? Okay, then I have a question for Natalie Sweeney, who talked about drag storage time in Canadian libraries. As I said, you partly answered my question, but I am interested to know whether your professional community have some kind of official stance, official policy towards LGBTQ2S+ themes and programs in libraries.
Yes. Is that working? Yes, so the professional association that I mentioned, so that's the General Library Association. There are others, there are many others. So if you check, for example, the Canadian Association for Professional and Academic Libraries, it's there's a policy there as well. So we have statements overall. Inclusivity and diversity in our workplaces is very important. We have them as part of our hiring practices. It's required by law in Canada to make sure that those are happening in public institutions. All our universities are public institutions, so we do have to do that as well as our public libraries, which are funded by municipalities and provinces. So yes.
Okay, thank you. More questions for Natalie? Okay, then I'll move on. A question for Marianne Martens. Someone? Okay, if not, then my question. You and Natalie have addressed topics that can really stir up controversy among library users, but not only users, but among librarians themselves. So we know that you teach future librarians. Can you tell us more about how you teach them to address these sensitive topics? What do you tell them?
That is a really good question. I teach a class called Social Justice and Youth Engagement. And in that class, of course, I talk about actually my book came out of that class. So I really tried to teach students that whatever your personal views are, when you come to work in the library, you're a Democrat. All of these views, you're open to all views, you're accepting of all people. Whatever your personal views are, doesn't matter. And I also show them I respect their own personal views. I understand, I have students who are very conservative. We have students who don't share my views.
But again, when it comes to the work, we are providing access to all. We are not imposing judgment on people, whatever your personal values are, leave those at home.
Thank you, Marianne. I can see that you have supporters here. You have supporters here who share these ideas. I'm glad to hear that. More questions for Marianne? If not, it's time for quick refreshment. Okay, Jasenka.
Thank you. I know that we all are quite familiar with all these themes. For me, it is very interesting to compare our 2 or 3 or 4 communities because I'm not anymore children librarian, but I work in subject analysis, and in that process of the acquisition and putting books on the shelves, I do understand complexity of the issue that you have in banned books and drag stories. But for example, I don't recognize, that's always my problem, that that's the main issue in our community here. We have just very few books about sexuality, LGBTIQ2+, what are the other, those too many families, you know, and we have quite a shy publishing industry, so it's very seldom books with that topics. And they are not banned. They are not, and I don't know, do my colleagues have any statistics, how much they are loaned, read, etc. Also, we don't have official drag queens, right? Who would like to read. So that is my issue, my question actually. We have other, I would say, topics that are also related with the freedom of and rights to read. We have more a question of immigrants, we have more question of poverty, we have more question of maybe not interested people, how to bring them back to the books. So that's interesting for me. For example, how do you find Canada for me, for example? When I think about Canada, I think about your prime minister, right? I think about openness to that theme. That's my impression. And also when I think about Canada, I think about the vast land, about indigenous people, and about immigrants. So actually, you put the emphasis on the, I would say, drag queens, and not, for example, on the people who should become part of the Canadian society, for example, as immigrants. So how the Librarian Association actually found that that's the most topic that divides actually community and not bring them together. For example, the question of the racism.
Right. We have other issues in Canada. This is just one small thing that I chose. Originally, I was going to talk about food security and how public libraries are dealing with food security first, and talking about how children are scared about the future with climate change and things like that. So I was going to talk about that, but it was very, very deep and very complex, and I wanted to have a bit more fun today. So I thought I chose the drag story time. But yes, immigration is definitely an issue in Canada as well, and they're talking about restricting immigration in the future, and why are they doing that? We're such a big country, but the issue as well is that people go to the big cities, and the cities are over full, and there's no more room, and so why aren't they going to communities? If I were an immigrant, I don't know if I'd want to go live in a community that's minus 40 degrees Celsius with one grocery store and, you know, maybe not the most inclusive place to go. So there are a lot of
issues that I could have talked about in libraries, but Joanne. Oh no, they are. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they are. I think you can also substitute. So for example, Natalie's talk on drag story time. You can substitute it. You could say, okay, well, this time we're going to do an Indigenous story time. You know, so just substitute whatever issue is of the moment. And that's what I would love to hear from you here in Croatia, what kinds of issues you face in libraries, what kinds of challenges you might have as well, that maybe mirror some of the things I know in America right now. We're in a very extreme kind of time. And you know, everything kind of switches, it goes from one side to the other. Right now, we're going to kind of move to the right in a way. So I would love to hear from you as well.
If my colleagues are shy, I guess during the coffee break. Well, I would just like to reply to yes, and I think that the fact that we don't have many books on LGBTQ2S plus topics doesn't mean that we don't have, that this is not an issue. Actually, perhaps maybe it proves that it is. You know, when we first had this picture book in Croatia, it is all family. It showed different types of family. I was the head of branch libraries in Rijeka City Library, and in one small branch, my older colleague kept the book under the desk. I don't want anyone to say anything about it. You know, another example of a picture book about rainbow family, yes, we have them, only few, but if you remember, it was burned in one carnival. So, yes, it was burned in one carnival. You know this tradition when you burn something on carnival, at the end, this picture book was burned. So I don't think that it is not an issue. And I'm glad that we heard some good examples from another part of the world. And I think it is time for coffee break. Yes, we are behind our schedule. So I would suggest that we meet at 11:50. It's like in 20 minutes. Is it enough? Okay. Hi again. I am very happy that you enjoyed your discussions. And I hope that you enjoyed the break. Now we'll continue with the second part of today's program. We solved technical problem we had with a presentation prepared by Sevgi from Turkey. So let's see the video she prepared for us.
Children in the libraries, conference attendees. I hope all of you have a great meetings and enjoyable conference experience. I would like to thank organization committee firstly, then my colleagues Áurea, Carolyn, and Info Libraries for Children and Young People sections for giving this opportunity to be with you. Today I want to talk about the Turkey's library, actually, and one of the successful projects of Rami. It's about bibliotherapy. Now, I want to share my presentation with you. Firstly, it's not so special library because the story of this buildings is different from the others. I want to talk about the history of the Rami, firstly. Rami has a history of more than 250 years. It was used an area that provided logistical support and serves to the army from Muslim period and till First World War. And it's really so destroyed during the World War times, and now it's really changed, and the help and the support to the whole societies. It's really beautiful project for us, Drugi, because of that I want to share these libraries with you. And I think there is a difference of the destructiveness of history is one, a transformation into a library for the well-being and the sustainability of the world. This is a really valuable project. Yes, the finished the restorations 2023 and there is a bonus and the renovation of and the rebuilding this is a hard process, but it's really so successful. Around library has been restored with durable and sustainable materials as well as gimmick and only any function. During the renovation process, everyone has minimum limits, the limit to the environmental units by careful site selection, use of natural construction materials, contributions, and efficient waste. It is a target personally with the well-authorized sustainable certificates. They use drip irrigation system and they use electric vehicles and of course cooking cells. And in addition to that, to raise the generation sensitive to nature and the environment, nature literacy courses are held with the children's 7 to 14 age group. Each children who participates in the library and literacy course, they receive a C level. And they also have the chance to plant their seeds in the agricultural environment in the library and observe their growth. Besides this, the paper recycling workshops, sustainable seeds recycling workshops, and the exploring dvorani, getting the local plants workshops on, or the children courses on nature awareness. Around the library, have more than 4,000 persons in the state, and it's really so huge indoor and the outdoor spaces. And there are 7 libraries for babies, for children, adults library, state library, section collections, and specialized subjects library. And S.E.A, we call S.E.A is a kind of restoration house. Yeah, it's really so huge area, and the featuring 51,000 square meter artificial area, indoor landscape area, and there was a pond surrounded by trees, and exhibition areas, and the halls in the library's garden are surrounded by walking and biking paths, presenting distinctive experiences enriched with nature, culture, and art. And the work spaces are managed as a life center with activities planned across the social, cultural, academic, and intellectual and community needs for children, teenagers, young people, and all attendees. The diversity of activities amazes at the limitlessness of what the library can do. You can reveal videos on the library page if you are interested in. And when all activities planned on the information services planned, all the events are published on the web page. And interested people can apply and make a reservation. It is completely free charge. And today I'm going to talk about the library projects because last year's project of the library was so that and the well-being of children, young and adults participants, and enable the librarians in the project to develop in the field of bibliotherapy. And the library projects in innovative initiative aimed at supporting the mental health of the community while harnessing the healing power of books. We want to heal with books, empowering words. This project was launched in the collaboration with the Ministry of Culture and Tourism and Rwanda Library and Lavra University. This project was initiated to create a training center in the field of bibliotherapy, enabling individuals to express and share some of their psychological or emotional and social issues, understand each other better, and ultimately improve. It aims to foster development of libraries in this field, create an exemplary educational methods for libraries, and formulate prescription for rules that can be used in bibliotherapy. And this project has been fast, currently it's almost intellectual training on bibliotherapy and applications for a year. And the second year, run library provides bibliotherapy as a writing service to be presented. And the third one is establishing the bibliotherapy education and the resource center. And the project is now in this steps. And I want to show you some books which the librarians and the project committee use during this project. The team might change according to the group's needs and needs. If the group members don't know each other, updates are down. Activity and groups focusing on self-expression, self-confidence, and empathy are selected mostly. As a complementary activity with reading therapy or short creating journal reading and writing is done during this project with the students and students. It is done with a class that each other, groups on friendship and bonding are selected because it's so hard experience and to share the feelings of language is really important, as you know, for children. And selected groups encourage children to introspect and express themselves. It has also been observed that fiction books are more beneficial for bibliotherapy application. And there is a last slide, and I want to share with you the project activities and participants. It's really so successful and the outcomes are really so good for the attendees and for the users of the library. And the theoretical training is take 72 hours. Then we have partners implementation, and then we have workshops, showing workshops, panel discussions, seminars, and conversation are method. And the participants of this project is then 8,000 people. It's really so huge, and that was great. I'm happy. And outcomes are social areas of therapy, support community, and reading culture improves in the area of this language. And activities of opportunity, the recent programs to the library facilities is important for us too. The cultural development is really increasing, and the people are going themselves. And strengthening family interactions actually another important figure because children's mothers and fathers came to the library together and these kind of different kinds of activities. And that's really great. And the engagement of society is another successful outcomes of this project. Yes. Currently, I want to share my wish. I do that for lifelong knowledge and lifelong well-being. Libraries and librarians are vital in the state of efficient partners. We are ready for advance. Thank you for listening.
This was Sevgi. Thanks to Sevgi, although she can't hear us. And our next presenter is Professor Carolyn Rankin she is Associate Lecturer in the School of Education at Ulster University in Northern Ireland and Senior Lecturer at Charles Sturt University, Australia. Presentation number 6. Carolyn has sent us a recording of her presentation titled Baby Bounce and Rhymes, the Positive Interaction of Music and Singing in Early Years Library Programming. Let's hear it.
Hello everyone, my name is Carolyn Rankin and I live in the county of Yorkshire in the United Kingdom. I'd like to talk to you today about the important role of singing and music in early years library programming and the positive intervention of librarians. I'm an academic and a library educator by background, but I'm also a musician and a grandmother and have first-hand experience of singing nursery rhymes over and over again to my granddaughter. Today I'd like to share 2 contrasting examples of incorporating music into library programming for early years. The first is from Libraries Northern Ireland, who provide sessions and resources through their Rubber Hub. The second example introduces the Kodai technique used by my colleague Ben Lawrence, who is an early childhood music specialist. So singing and rhyme time sessions are perfectly placed in the public library. Songs and nursery rhymes are our very first encounter with the world of language literature, and singing helps to develop speech, language, and communication skills. There are many benefits and value of music education in the early years, and it is known that music has a role in brain development before birth. So music can positively influence the development of early literacy, and in fact the Every Child Ready to Read initiative of the American Library Association identifies singing as one of the 5 core practices in early childhood library literacy program. Common music activities can encourage attentive listening, and many libraries include programming for singing, rhyme time, baby bounce, and rhyme. There really is a growing recognition of the benefits of music education and a considerable research base of evidence to support this. Singing helps to develop speech, language, and communication skills, and musical activities provide opportunities for supporting language acquisition and phonological awareness. And according to the Oxford Handbook of Music Education, it's suggested that developing musical abilities at an early age will enhance children's abilities in processing the musical elements in speech, which is crucial for languages acquisition. And singing together also helps to build a strong sense of community and togetherness. It's great for families to support and learn from each other. It can enrich the family unit by boosting emotional and social well-being. Making music, it's a shared experience, and the music used in these sessions can reach across socio-economic and cultural backgrounds. My first example to share is the Northern Ireland Library Authority, which is more commonly known as Libraries NI. And this is a regional body responsible for the provision and delivery of a public library service in Northern Ireland. It's the largest single library authority in the UK, and the services are currently delivered through a network of 96 branch libraries. I'd just like to flag up that the policy document, the Children and Young People Services Policy, specifically mentions the services contribute to providing early childhood development through support for parents and carers, recognising them as the child's first educator. Public libraries have traditionally contributed to children's cognitive development by providing opportunities for preschool children and their parents and carers to engage in early learning activities. And Libraries NI have developed a resource called the Rub-a-Dub Hub, which is for parents and carers of preschool children aged 0 to 4. And this resource contains a whole host of material to be used for singing and other activities. In the second example, I'd like to share how my colleague Ben Lawrence uses the Kodály method, a fun and interactive way to introduce music to young children. Ben is an early childhood music specialist in Musica Kirklees in Yorkshire, and he uses this technique, which is originally developed by the Hungarian composer and educator Kodály in the 20th century. It's grounded in theory, and the techniques engage the child as much as possible, integrating body movement, singing, collaborative group exercises. And a singing voice is the very best instrument for a young child to learn to use. Now, Ben is a member of the British Kodály Academy, and he endeavours to apply the philosophy of music education in all his sessions. And I asked him why he used this method in baby bounce and rhyme programming. And this was his reply. He said, it's sound pedagogical thinking. The philosophy has the child at its heart, and the learning is deep and scaffolded to ensure success. It really works. And he says also that the greatest resource is the teacher themselves. There's no need for technology or anything extra like a bubble machine. Although he does say he likes to use books and have lycra and puppets to hand. I also asked Ben why he likes to use the Kodály method. Why does he like to use this in sessions with young children and their families? And he told me it's an easy intervention to empower parents and carers, giving strategies to develop language, communication, and connection through songs and rhymes. Songs and nursery rhymes introduce children to the patterns, characteristics of language through the repetition of certain phrases and rhyming. And he says it works. Singing brings people together in joyful experience. There's an energy shift from what sometimes can be a very busy arrival to calm and laughing, leaving at the end. So excellent social interaction and an opportunity for parents and carers to communicate and enjoy the session as well. So some final thoughts from me on the positive intervention of music and singing in early years library programming. As they grow, children will learn to associate the local library with the positive experience of rhyme time and singing and making music. Librarians who can offer this musical experience are providing a positive intervention in child development. It's fun, but let us not underestimate how important these interactions are and how child development is taking place. It's also an opportunity, I think, for future research on this topic. There seems to be actually very little published on the role of music making in early years library programming. There is a lot published and researched on early music making in nursery settings and preschool settings, not much on libraries. So there's an opportunity, I feel, here for advocacy work, perhaps, and opportunities for professional development. Is there much material that could be shared to help support each other? Are there opportunities for research into partnership working? I'd also suggest, as a final thought, it would be good to share what's happening with music and singing programs in your library. It would be very good to know what is happening internationally. This is such a powerful and positive intervention. I would like to end this short presentation by thanking you very much indeed for listening. And if anybody is interested in getting in touch with me to discuss this topic further, my email address is here, and I will be very pleased to hear from you. And I wish you every success for the rest of your conference. Thank you.
Carolyn is with us via Zoom, right, Sarah? You said that you saw her. Okay, so just thank you, Carolyn, and we move on with our program. The next presentations comes from our neighboring country, Slovenia. Lavra Tinta from the Ljubljana City Library will tell us more about the manual for reading quality youth books in the presentation entitled I Know What You Read Last Year, Slovenia's Annual Children's and Youth Literary Landscape. Lara, the floor is yours.
Hello. I will present you the work we do as an expert committee of manual for reading quality youth books. Okay. Every year, the manual for reading quality youth books is published by Pionierska Center for Youth Literature and Librarianship, affiliated with the Ljubljana City Library. Pionierska is Slovenia's leading institution in the field of youth literature, librarianship, and promotion of reading. The manual offers a distinctive and critical perspective of the annual production of children's and youth literature in Slovenia. On the picture, you can see the last one. I have one order with me, you can see it later. And there is also a QR code somewhere, yeah? So you can look up all the old ones. The first manual was published in 1998. The manual presents the youth literature output of the respective year in a transparent and systematic manner. In this context, transparency refers to established methods of categorization as used by expert and practitioners handling book material. For example, alphabetically, age levels, disciplines. Whereas systematic refers to presentation groups ranging from the simplest play-focused formats through narratives to aesthetically sophisticated and well-thought-out texts. With The manual's layout follows readers' interest from the pre-reading period, which is essential for instilling a love of books through primary school to the transition to young adult readers. The manual provides information about a rich spectrum of books for librarians, educators, teachers, and other professionals, which facilitates an effective literary and library education catering to a wide range of needs. Its design and execution support the objectives outlined in the Slovenian National Strategy for the Development of Reading Culture. An expert committee reads and evaluates every book for children and youth published in Slovene language in 1 year. Each monograph is included in the classification which meets the following conditions. It's in Slovene language or also in Slovene. Is defined as a book for children and youth in more than one library. The majority of committee members agree with the inclusion in the manual. We use a scale of 1 to 5 to rate books. Deficient gets the editions that are so unfinished from a publishing point of view that they fail to meet the criteria of a good book, and editions that lack basic effort in terms of aesthetics, ethics, communication, or some other basic publishing value. Good, very good, and excellent grades get the books which tend towards aesthetic, ethical, or some other basic human value. For excellent books, the excellence of the message usually exceeds established social norms, thereby expanding the horizon of the reader. A book rated in this way is entitled to a golden peer mark. Books that stand out in their content and format in a given year are annotated and given the golden peer mark. First mark was given in 2010, and this mark has become a reliable source of information for reading mentors and readers in libraries and bookshops. As we can see on the pictures, the mark is already widely and well accepted in public and school libraries around Slovenia. It also stands as a symbol of excellence, a point of pride for publishers committed to delivering exceptional literary works. Every January is a golden peer month when books with golden peer mark are presented in the biggest showcase of the biggest bookshop in Slovenia, in Ljubljana. And also for illustrators and authors is a golden peer mark important, and they are proud when they receive it. Among all books with golden peer mark, the golden peer awards are chosen in 4 categories: original Slovenian youth fiction book, original Slovenian youth educational book, translated youth fiction book, and translated youth educational book. Since 2021, the Golden Peer Awards have been given by the Ljubljana City Library in partnership with the Slovenian Library Association. So the award became a National Librarians Award for a high-quality book for young people. Each year, the publishers who received the Golden Peer mark for their books are presented on Golden Peer Festival, which is part of Slovenia Book Fair. It's a place to celebrate all the Golden Peer marked books and all the publishers. So that's it. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Laura. And our next speaker comes from Germany. Benjamin Scheffler is the head of Children's and Youth Library at the Berlin Central Regional Library. And Benjamin will tell us about weekly job coaching for young adults. The title of the presentation is Level Up Job Coaching for Young Adults at the Berlin Youth Library. Benjamin, we are listening. But we're also patient, so don't worry.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Elisa, for telling the audience a little bit about me. I'm head of Germany's largest children's library, and I will present to you today one of our newer programs. We are running this now for 1 year and 3 months. So some of the conclusions I will tell you about might change in the near future as we proceed with the program. And since the theme of the conference here are the sustainability goals, and we are also have begun to connect our work more and more with the SDG goals, I want to point out that this program connects to SDG number 4, quality of education, high quality education, 5, gender equality, SDG 8, decent work and economical growth, and SDG 10, less inequality. And as you follow me, you will learn why that is so. Adulting became one of the new focal points of the Youth Library's collection and also our program work. Because especially for the target group of young people over age 16 and over 16, we need to focus on programs that are designed especially to their needs. The aim of Level Up is to be a strong partner for personal development and the transition from adolescence to adulthood, with programs tailored to the lives and needs of young people. Adulting consists of, Level Up consists of 2 components. We have weekly individual career, job, and application coaching, and we have a monthly event with guests. So the focus of the whole program is on the participation of young people who are affected by social inequality in education due to certain or ascribed characteristics such as social status, origin, gender, sexual orientation, and or disability. Career counseling is offered in schools at class grade 10. But in the library, it is very individual. It is a one-to-one personal coaching. And also it takes place away from the peer group of the individual student, which often helps to develop a broader aspect or to ask questions students don't want to ask in front of the whole class. The offer in total has been very well received since day one. The target group has been reached, I can say, means that young adults over the age of 16 are regularly coming to this coaching. We also have a very high demand. So for further meetings, that means that young people are not coming only one time, but they come back again. There is no limit because you don't have to apply, you don't have to subscribe or to register for the program, you just drop by. You just drop in and then the counselor gives you the time that is available. That means if there are 5 people waiting, it will be a shorter counseling than on a day when the traffic is low and there are only 2 people waiting. I think the career guidance is a very important aspect of adulting because at that time of the development of the young people, the participation and information opportunities are very important because inequalities here come to light very easily. If you don't have a very good background, if you come from a social challenged district in Berlin, you have less career chances than when you come from a rich part of Berlin. And the library here can support the young people and also can step up and do something to diminish these inequalities. Okay, so I forgot that I have all these details here. So what happens in the individual coaching? We give, or the counselor gives information on opportunities, what to do after school. What do we do when school is finished? What do I do then? Also advice on career choices and planning sensible steps. There are certain times of the year when you can apply for example, for apprenticeships or internships. There are certain times of the year when you start training. If you miss this time, you have to wait another year. So it's important that you have a plan, that you have a schedule, and the counselor helps in setting up that. Also exploring talents and skills. In our experience, the students come very often to the counseling and just have a vague idea of what their skills are, what they want to do. So the counselor here helps to unearth these qualities. Then there is a joint preparation of application documents for internships, apprenticeships, jobs, or even university. And if required, topics related to housing, finances, family, etc. can be talked about and maybe given advice to where to turn to get more information. Once a month, we have an event with a role model, someone who has successfully installed a career and developed some interesting professional job. You see here guests from the last month. That was an actor, a podcaster, someone who really started as doing podcasts privately for his own enjoyment and now is able to live from that. Then a dubbing actor, Dubbing is a very big job in Germany because we dub everything. A street worker, a politician, and a firefighter, just to give you some examples. We did, of course, these events not on our own. We had a cooperating partner. This was a non-profit association founded in 2019 by 13 stakeholders with many years of experience in democracy education. And this institution was responsible for recruiting the interview partners, finding people who were willing to do this event, for organizing the event, including the moderation and content preparation and follow-up. And the library provided promotion of the event, the place, and the technical support and whatever was needed. The events bring to the library a mixed audience. We have teenagers, we have young adults, they are from the target group, but also age groups clearly outside their target group are coming. The biggest challenges were finding suitable interview partners. And in my opinion, the creative sector accounted for too large a proportion of the professionals presented. So we are now thinking about how to present more normal professions to get people to become a plumber or a secretary or whatever. And also it was very complicated or difficult because of the non-binding nature and spontaneity of the target group that made the planning very difficult. The response of the events was very much tied to the respective guest. But during the event, the atmosphere was always great. There were a lot of questions, discussions going on. The atmosphere was great. So even when if the audience was very small, sometimes there were only 8 people, I would say that was a success. But we are still developing the whole thing and we'll see what the future will bring us. At the moment, we are looking for a new cooperation partner for these question and answer events once a month. We started doing Insta stories about these Q&A events, and they had a wide reach, much more than the audience that came in live. So we have to think about a way maybe to do these events not at the library, but in a different way. We are trying out many things at the moment. And the problem is that too many adults come. The events take place in the library, that is an open space, everyone can drop in, and it's very difficult to get the young people to attend because they don't like to attend when there are already 10 grown-ups sitting. So it's really hard to get the atmosphere right for the target group. And on the other way, the library as a policy has that all events have to be open. So we cannot close them and put up restrictions. The weekly job coaching will be continued as it is at the moment because there's nothing to change. Never change a winning horse. It's running well at the moment, so why change anything? Thank you. If you have questions about this program or want more information, there is an email address. That is our library email address for the Children's and Young Adults Library. You can write to that if you want, and then your question will be directed to the right person to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Benjamin. And the fun presenter has sent us a recording from Mexico. Áurea Flores comes from Allied FOPA Library, I hope that I pronounced it well. She offers us a glimpse of some community libraries and projects in Latin America. Let's hear her.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Lavra Xaydé Esquivel Flores, and I'm very friendly as concerns as a job. So, I'm going to share my screen. And this time, I work on some experiences of community libraries and projects for the youth. What's this question about community libraries? Well, space that we see the community is now currently involved. This has to do with social economic circumstances, as well as the segments where usually in marginalized areas. And the third one is that they work on donations, since there government budget to purchases and such. And so basically it's more about the group of people. Last of all, we're often a hospital for young people. I want to stress especially this last aspect because fertility purposes to offer an opportunity of personal growth away from environments. So we're more open to be physically intervened by young people and they're more focused on their particular needs. There was another aspect that I would like to stress in this occasion, since activity of more often than not is a volunteer, they're learning to work in the library sciences. However, this means that they tend to focus their efforts onto the people more than the collections or the systems. This will channel the energies in another way. I bring some examples. So the first one is the CONAVIP, National Commission of Popular Libraries in Argentina. This is quite an extraordinary example because they've been around since 1870. By now, they have around 2,000 libraries and 30,000 volunteers. Of course, it's very including those types of libraries. It's not the same to say a community library and a popular library. There are so many differences. The second one is the Biblioteca Paso Artigas in Buenos Aires, Argentina. What is so there was small libraries installed in open spaces so people can take a look and read another if they wish to do so. There is not necessarily a control system of any kind, and of course, these kind of projects offer various activities of accompaniment. Sorry, there's a little bit of mumbling. I'm sorry. It's a little bit late. Another example is the Biblioteca Juliet Ramirez. This is from Colombia. It was formerly a police outpost, and it was named after a military who was struck by the stroke bullet, as well as most of our American countries suffer from serious crime and violence problem. And this is a really good example of community resistance against police brutality. Not strange. Criminals are not like typical criminals. These criminals, more often than not, are what we're learning more. And it's a symbolic space of memory, love, and solidarity. There's another project I very much enjoy is Hibridnom, and this is more of a project more than a natural library, and it actually converts the noun library to a verb, and to library as a verb basically means to make libraries happen among communities stricken by violence by means of book donations and various activities. It's worth mention to say that it was started by a group of psychoanalysts, which also gives another turn to their approach, and they work closely with middle schools especially. I would like to also mention our library, our community library, named after Alain de Fopa. She was an advocate for human rights. She was a poet, a translator, a dear professor of our university, and also she was a victim of forced disappearance by the Guatemalan army. This library is part of the Artistic Vinculation Unit of the University Cultural Center of Tlatelolco in Mexico City. We are the first community library of our university and its library system. It's the only library among the 4 nominating bodies from Mexico for the Astrid Lindgren Memorial Award, and we are representative of Mexico in the 3rd edition of the World Through Picture Books. In our short time of existence, we've achieved quite some things that are not so common for a library so young and so small. And what happens when the university takes the library matter into their own hands? They prove their social agency regarding their own existence. They exercise their citizen and human rights. They make visible social injustice regarding access. They confirm that cultural hierarchies are not a need, neither a must, and with solidarity next in consciously defend them. And as fast as I can, I would like to, on a teeny tiny, really different note, basically, what do young people go? Do young people go when there are no graphic readings at the library, whether it's due to ignorance, prejudice, or lack of resources? What will the young readers do when the publishing industry can keep up with their demands for manga, for example? Well, we have to remember that young readers are disobedient by nature. No, are not. They will read if it's legal or not, as long as they can read, right? What I'm talking about? I'm talking about scandalations. I took the liberty to include this aspect because scandalations basically are the exercise of acquiring, scanning, cleaning, translating, and editing manga that has not been licensed yet in various languages for it to be distributed for free. Regardless of our opinions about whether we like it or not, this practice has been around for over 20 years. It has generated large and tight reading communities among young people throughout the world, and it has built its own library spaces. As you can see in this example, it has constituted an important place for graphic readers without access to manga, regardless of location or purchasing power. After all, as librarians, we cannot measure nor judge our patrons' reading practices, especially when related to socioeconomic circumstances. Our aim is not to dictate our patrons what they should or should not read just because we think we know better. And we must strive to learn and understand what our patrons need and act accordingly alongside them. Because after all, we are part of our communities. We're not outside of them. And of course, as a final touch, I would like to quote a fragment of a book, the Biblioteca Imaginada, by our dear friend Gonzalo Oyarzún from Chile. Basically, I want to say, imaginary library always has its gaze fixed on the future, with its heart held tight in the past, with the ancestors, with the first peoples. There we can feel smells and see colors. There's different flavors. It is a kitchen and nurture. It is a soft bed and a shared table. I remember dvorani is a huge house that doesn't belong to anyone, where no one can be spared. No one where you come from, or where you go, or even if you don't have a home. That's the library we like to imagine. This is a kind of library we strive to have, regardless of our social station. With that, I would like to finish my presentation. Muchas gracias por su atención. Thank you very much for your attention from our all Latin America and the Caribbean. I hope you have a great time. See you next time. Bye bye.
If not, of course, I have some questions, although some of them were already answered. I first would like to ask Lavra, how do your users, children, parents, teachers react to books that have earned the golden pear mark, which proves the quality of the books?
Children and parents are very used to this mark. In libraries, we have special boxes with these books, and when the families, the children came to the library, you heard them yelling from one part to another, "Mommy or Daddy, I'm going to the marked books." So yeah, it's really rewarding to see that they owned already this mark.
Okay, thank you, Lavra. I'm sure you will get more. I'm sure we will get more questions in the document which we will share. Marianne wants to say something.
Just a short question. Is there a limit every year to how many books get the mark, or is it just free?
No, it's not a limit, it's free. We have in Slovenian language published 1,000 books per year approximately, and 100 gets but this is just approximately. Sometimes it's 90, sometimes it's 110. So, but it's not the limit, just the criteria is the quality. So.
Thanks. And a question for Benjamin. Although you did answer the part of it, perhaps you could elaborate. How much interest do young people show in the program? Now, you told us that the interests vary and that they are unpredictable audience. Perhaps you would like to add something.
So the program has two parts, and the interest in the weekly part is rather strong. So we will have an intermission in the program in the summer, during summer holidays, because at that time nobody is coming. But during the school year, the 3-hour duration of the weekly event is always fully booked. It's very rare that only 2 people are coming or only 1 person. So mostly it's 3 to 4 or 5 people. And if you think that really one-to-one individual counseling takes at least 1 hour, that is pretty good. And if there's not enough time, there will be other dates made with the clients. And for the monthly event, it also varies. It depends on the guest. We had 5 people and we had 25 people in the audience. It's different.
Thank you. And another small question. Do you have any feedback on how this counseling influences the career choices of these young people? Did you get any feedback from them?
We get the feedback that they really are happy to have this one-to-one counseling, because they have the feeling that their individual needs can be met in this program. That is as far as the feedback we got. I cannot say, oh, we have 40 youngsters who found their ideal profession or their ideal career, but the program is not running that long, and we are still doing evaluation in regularly mode, so it's hard to say at this point.
Okay, thank you, thanks a lot. Do we have more questions from the audience for our speakers? Okay, we are behind our schedule. Thank you, dear presenters from IFLA. Again, I would like to thank the National and University Library for their hospitality. Now we continue our gathering in a relaxed and cheerful atmosphere. Next, we have a pub quiz prepared by our colleagues Dolores Mumelaš, Jelena Pisačić, and Branka Mikačević. Here they come. And now I leave the running of this fun part of the program to our dear colleague Dolores. Okay, and for people who are listening and watching us via Zoom, this is the end of today's conference. Thanks for joining us and see you next year. Thank you, bye.